The Yazidis, an ancient religious minority and the victims of one of the Islamic State's most brutal attacks. But they are a minority now hiding a secret.
مجلس داعش ملتك كامل دينك كامل وقت إبادة بوش عن بكرة أبيهم وكي عرب قوتي ويتخر كزجي خونا مايا بمبحثات ده بتشوكات كان.
Many Yazidi women were forced into sexual slavery, and some have had children fathered by their Islamic State captors. Children who were often their only solace through years of torture.
I was imprisoned for 4 years, but I've been able to put it all behind me now because of this child.
But women like Regine are being forced to choose between their children and returning to the Yazidi community. Children born of rape are not welcome.
I want to ask you, are we wrong to miss our children? I mean women like us. Are we wrong?
Over the past year, I've traveled across northern Iraq and Syria to find the women being forced to make this agonizing choice and to tell their story, a story Yazidi leaders want to silence. In 2014, these pictures of desperate Yazidis fleeing Islamic State fighters shocked the world. Trapped on northern Iraq's Sinjar mountain, hundreds of men were massacred and over 6,000 women and children were forced into captivity. The Yazidis are an ancient religious minority of around 800,000 people, most of whom live in northern Iraq. They've been persecuted for centuries, but the attack by the Islamic State was different. Their main objective was to abduct women and girls to be traded as sex slaves. 5 years later, and with the so-called Islamic State all but defeated, I've come to a safe house in northeast Syria, where a group of Yazidi women are about to be sent home after surviving years as IS prisoners. The fate of these women has captivated the world's media, the ultimate tale of good versus evil. But part of their story is being hidden, and the Yazidi leadership wants to keep it that way. After 5 years of rape and forced marriage, many of these women have had children with their Islamic State captors.
عمر عدي بدأ بالسنة الرابعة وفوزية بدأت بالسنة الثانية ورقية بدأت بأول سنة.
سوري بس ميقاتي.
السلام عليكم. شلون؟
Hi, how are you? Everyone did interview with her.
سلم بالأول.
But everyone, Sheikh,
This is Sheikh Ziad, the head of the Yazidi community in Syria.
Everyone did so.
There are some cases you can interview them from the morning to the evening, but others, there are some speciality with that, we don't accept that.
But she already did interview. But Sheikh, she... Huh. So where is her kids?
The women are swiftly placed into some cars and driven off to the Iraqi border to be reunited with their families. We followed, but we were warned against further reporting.
So this is the point that these women are finally leaving Syria, and we know that at least 2 of them here have had children with IS militants, but it seems both of them going back to Iraq alone.
Some of these women have been forced to abandon their children before returning to the Yazidi community. It makes for a bittersweet reunion with their long-lost relatives in Iraq. Because for one family to reunite, another has been ripped apart. It was 1 year ago when I first met an Islamic State survivor who had been through this. Because of the stigma attached to having a child with an IS fighter, we have hidden her face and given her a different name. Like thousands of other women, Juwan's ordeal started on Sinjar mountain.
All the women and girls were captured, while the men were gathered and I believe they were killed. They took girls as young as 8. We couldn't do anything about it. They really tortured us.
Juwan was kidnapped with her 3 Yazidi children, and to keep the family together, she was forced to convert to Islam and marry a Tunisian jihadist.
That is when the monster took us. I stayed with that Tunisian IS member for 11 months until he was killed. But by that time, I was 7 months pregnant, and 3 months after his death, I gave birth to my son.
Eventually, Juwan's Yazidi husband located her through a network of people smugglers and paid for their children to be brought back to Iraq. But Juwan remained in Syria for another 2 years because her husband refused to accept the child fathered by her IS captor.
I was being held with 8 or 9 other women and girls. They also had children with members of IS, and so couldn't come home because of their families.
Her husband finally allowed her to return to Iraq with her son, but she didn't keep him for long.
I wanted to keep my son, but I couldn't. The community wouldn't accept him. IS did terrible things to us. They kidnapped and killed lots of us. I didn't want to offend my community by keeping my son.
A decision that continues to cause her pain.
I want to ask you, are we wrong to miss our children? I mean women like us. Are we wrong?
This is Lalish, the holiest temple in the Yazidi faith. The Yazidis say that their religion is the oldest in the world, but it is a religion that is not open to all. Maintaining a pure bloodline is central to the faith. Amongst this group are a number of young victims of the Islamic State. 5 years ago, they would have been banished from the community for having sexual relations with someone outside of the Yazidi faith, even though they did so under duress. But in a historic move, Baba Sheikh, the religious leader of the Yazidi community, issued a ruling that allowed those enslaved by the Islamic State to rejoin the community. It is incredible to see these young victims of IS being welcomed back into the community, and now thousands more Yazidis are arriving in Lalish to celebrate the new year. The Yazidi faith seems to be modernizing, yet another ancient doctrine remains in place. To be a Yazidi, both of your parents must be Yazidi. So, for women raped by IS fighters, their children are not accepted. But if the religious leaders change the rules once, couldn't they do it again? To find out, I've had to leave the celebration in Lalish to meet Ali Kheder Elias.
أعدادك كيمة أبا مقدما كيمة نقلكن بس الهيرة ده عندك تشبيتين موانع بيتين أو موانع نتشيا نمسألة موانع كباب الشيخة عن مجلس روحاني قبولنا كذا ونبزفر وان زار رابين أصلا قانون عراقي مع الأسف رقماوي نلب منها قانون ما الدورة رقماوي أبا من ناتشبت أبا بسلمانة أبا دي بيجتي بسلمانة ممنوعة تو بكا يزيدي.
So if it wasn't because of the Iraqi law, would Yazidi community, Yazidi council and Baba Sheikh, would they accept these children?
أويجني وما عليك قبول كر أو كرة داعشها ما لا خب خوي كانوا وخدان كان شو ما نعملينا شو إشكال بمجلس روحاني نينا.
But I met families that they said that there should be a fatwa. If there is a fatwa from Baba Sheikh, we will accept. Otherwise, we won't accept these children.
يا أمجد سداعش ملتك كامل دينك كامل وقت إبادة بوش عن بكرة أبيهم وكي عرب قوتي ويتخر كسجي خونا مايا بمبحثات ده بتشوكات كان ده زاب بلا بين أبي خلاص كان كابزان دي شابت.
A week later, the Yazidi Council published a statement saying children born to Islamic State fathers are not accepted. Despite what Ali Khidr Elias told me, this policy of non-acceptance had clearly been in place for a while. During our year-long investigation, we identified 20 Yazidi women who had given birth to children under the Caliphate. None had been allowed to bring their child home. We did find one woman who had kept her baby. We arranged to meet her in the privacy of my hotel room. She doesn't want the community to know she is speaking to us. Rojin, not her real name, fell pregnant just weeks before she was freed from the Islamic State and gave birth 7 months later when she was back in Iraq. She is now secretly raising the child, who we've called Nadiar, as a Yazidi with the help of her husband.
Neither my parents nor the community know the truth about this child. I'm always worrying about that. I was imprisoned for 4 years, but I've been able to put it all behind me now because of this child.
Do you think that if they know, if they find out, they would force you to leave Nadiar?
Yes, if they find out, they will take the child from me, or I will be forced to leave my family.
So it must be very difficult to live with all these concerns and fears all the time.
Yes, it's really difficult. I was held by ISIS for 4 years and we suffered a lot, beating, thirst and hunger. But what would be even worse would be to have my son taken off me now.
This is the Al-Hol camp in northeastern Syria. It's home to over 70,000 women and children from the Islamic State. They were rounded up when coalition forces defeated jihadist fighters. Conditions are dire, and many of the inhabitants still cling to ISIS's hate-filled ideology. Yet it is thought that many Yazidis are also among its residents, hiding the children they bore to Islamic State fighters. Dr. Ghafouri is a Kurdish activist who searches the camp, looking for Yazidi women and children to persuade them to go home. How many women with IS children we are talking about, and how many children?
Those who are coming back now,
Most of them.
8 of 10.
And how many each?
Most of them, they have 1 up to 3 or 4 kids. You know, the feeling of a mother, you know, you won't believe how they are holding their babies. Because mother is a mother. The feeling of, the love of mother comes above all kind of religion or belief or anything.
Dr. Ghafouri helps the Yazidi women and children go home, even if that means leaving IS-born children behind. She has a team of Yazidi women who escaped IS. They come to the camp to work undercover, dressed in niqab, to find the Yazidis. It is a dangerous job. The Islamic State's female police force still operate in the camp. A number of Yazidi women have left Al-Hol. I spent months searching in northeast Syria for their IS children, but no one would tell me where they are. Still, I'm determined to find out what has happened to them. I've been told about an orphanage in Mosul in northern Iraq, which has seen an influx of children since the war against IS started. This government-run orphanage takes care of more than 50 children. Sakine Muhammad Ali is the local government official responsible for running this place.
أنا أشقد استلمت نساء، أشقد استلمت أطفال مسيحيين، تركمان، شبك، ما مثل أطفال اليزيدية اللي إحنا كأنه نقطع قلبها وناخذ الطفل. بس المجتمع والناس أقوى من أي مشاعر.
I've discovered that Sakine knows Juvan, the Yazidi woman I met over a year ago, who was forced to give up her IS son, who we called Adam. She tells me Juvan's husband approached her and asked her to take the child.
المهم أنا وزوجها إحنا كنا متفقين إنه ناخذ طفلها ناخذ طفلها. 4 ساعات أنا أقنعها بأنه تسلم طفلها، ما تقتنع. يعني تعبت بحيث آخر شيء قلت أقول لأبو فلان أخذ زوجتك لأن ما أقدر عليها صراحة. أباوع الطفل أنقهر، أباوع المرأة أنقهر، وزوجها منا يبكي. يعني لا مشكلة ما كان حل إنه غير نكذب عليها.
Sakine told Juvan that she was only giving up her son for a week, knowing full well that her husband would not allow her to return and collect him. This would be the last time that Juvan would ever see Adam. Months later, the orphanage ran into financial difficulties and decided to put some children up for adoption.
يعني هو أطفال إحنا فتحنا باب التبني، من ضمنهم هذا هم راح معانا، مو بس هاي، كل أطفال اليزيدية راح.
It turns out I'm not the only one to have visited Sakine's orphanage. Juvan did come back looking for her son, but it was too late. The news he had been adopted without her consent must have been devastating. I wanted to find out how she is coping and decided to track her down. Sadly, she is now living in a women's refuge, far from home, having been divorced by her husband.
My family and my husband were extremely strict, and they separated me from my son. I got depression and I left my other children. It is now impossible for me to go back to them. I betrayed him. I didn't want to abandon my child. I felt like I betrayed that child. I betrayed that kid. My 3 other children know that I haven't betrayed them because they are old enough. But this child was just a poor kid. It was such a terrible day when I left them. A woman has adopted my child and has taken him for herself. My baby does not know me, but I think about him every day. But I think it's better for him to live with the other person now. It's better for him.
It's horrible to see Juvan so upset after losing all 4 of her children. I just had to try to speak to her family to find out if there is any way they could have saved themselves from this pain. Surprisingly, Juvan's husband agrees to meet me and seems keen to talk.
I told you that the child is not at fault. I've said it was God's will that the child was born. But when someone comes and kills all the men in a community, and then that killer fathers a child with your wife, it doesn't matter whether they are IS or from any other religious group. Who would accept that child? Perhaps in the West, that's acceptable. But in the East, it's not. We do not accept these kind of things here.
It is an unforgiving position, and one that I didn't expect to find shared by Juvan's son.
I do not want her to come back. She came back from ISIS and then she left us again. So I do not want to see her.
You don't accept that child as your brother?
No, it is true that our mother gave birth to that child, but he is not our father's, so it is not possible. He is the son of ISIS and we cannot accept him as our brother.
Juvan may have left the horror of the Islamic State, but the demands of the Yazidi religion now cast a long shadow over her life. But there are no winners when a mother is made to choose between her children and her religion.
I decided to name him Adam, and I called this one after my son, Hatem. I hope my children will not forget me. Hopefully one day, if God has mercy on me, then we will see each other again.